Welcome back to Breakfast Central. This is a part of the show where we have our in-studio analysts as well as our virtual analysts / commentators, the persons of you where you call in to be a part of the show. But in studio, we have with us the head strategy and public affairs, Nairametrics, Uade Ahimie. Good morning.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning.
Bonjour, les merci. You use
Bonjour,
petrol
monsieur.
or CNG?
Bonjour, monsieur.
Petrol.
Ah, okay, so...
You're not going for CNG?
No, there's no problem for
Let me ask, will you or would you convert your
It's
car?
too late to be asking him that. If he did not convert when CNG was
No,
230,
now relax,
is it when it's over
relax. He
400?
might
I don't know why everybody is always, people just continue to complain about
Would you convert
the
your
price.
car?
No, I won't convert my car.
That's all.
And you are complaining about the price of CNG going up, going down, petrol going up and going down. These things are dictated by international market forces, which is priced in dollar.
No, but
you have an
the
exchange
federal
rate.
government said that is the marketers, the downstream, and they are the ones that determine the price of CNG.
Yeah, because CNG must be determined by demand and supply. It's a simple logic.
And we don't have a lot of stations. Yet the prices are high. So the stress of driving from your house just to come and queue for longer as you now buy and the price is high, so you start regretting.
Okay, so
what if I had fuel?
Joe, let me ask you this question. You run a business.
One.
If the selling price is lower than your cost price, are you going to be in business in 1 year?
I will never be in business in 1 year.
You will probably not be in business after 1 month.
No, after
so what
2
are we
months,
talking
I
about?
shut down.
Prices must be determined by demand and supply. And every time we talk about these things, everybody is saying, oh, CNG, there's subsidy, there's no subsidy. But yes, government has created an environment whereby people can invest in CNG infrastructure. And there are people investing in CNG infrastructure. But let's remember that the cost of, is the same way you buy petrol at your petrol station. The cost of buying petrol involves the petrol that comes out of the refinery, whether it's Dangote or the Nigerian refineries, or even those that are imported. The cost of moving it from that refinery to the petrol station where the attendant is going to sell it. So once you understand that, and there is cost involved in all that, and then the cost of running that business also, the administrative cost and all, then you will put a margin on top of it, and that's where prices come. Government, and this is my opinion, government cannot continue to subsidize every single thing for every Nigerian. Rather, in my opinion, government should ensure that they create an enabling environment for people to be able to invest in the country by providing security, quality education, quality healthcare, social amenities that people can use to drive their businesses, and that's infrastructure development. I've always maintained this. Let's go on, please.
All right, let's get into the papers. Although this is already part of the paper because everyone's talking about CNG and the price.
Absolutely.
It's been a big conversation in the past 24 hours. But we'll punch you first with the punch, even though we say no to violence. Don't leave me. The Punch newspaper.
Can't believe
APC opposition clash over federal government's revenue growth claim. Presents counterfacts. Presidency tells critics. Revenue, nothing without results, opposition says. Economists query Tinubu's no more borrowing assertion amid 13 trillion naira deficit. MTN, 15 orders remit 54 billion naira in education and police taxes. 3 killed in Lagos Masquerader Festival clash. Wow. Terrorists recruited 1,364 West African children and shot 14,000 schools, according to United Nations. These are such alarming numbers. My reforms have restored Nigeria's global respect, according to Tinubu. Non-oil revenue jumps 40% to 20.6 trillion naira, says presidency. NARD, that's National Association of Resident Doctors, insists on strike, says over 2,000 doctors owed. Now, I feel like this last story I want to take in a way aligns with the story at the top left corner where the presidency says, my reforms have restored Nigeria's global respect. Meanwhile, the U.S. says security concerns behind visa cancellations for Nigerians and others. Because the U.S. has been inviting people and Nigerians have been so upset. Quiet revocation.
Quietly,
Well, so on the global respect, well, to a certain extent, because We've carried out the reforms that the IMF and the World Bank and everyone has been looking at. So yes, has it brought Nigeria back to that global space where we can access funding in terms of borrowings, in terms of saying that we're getting additional monies towards infrastructure development? Yes, it has. That's the way I put that. On the US issue, we know that the policy of the US government is to try as much as possible not to let, whether it's Nigerians or whether it's colored or Hispanic, into America. And that's a Donald Trump, policy. And they're implementing it. So it's not just Nigeria that they're doing it to. I'm sure they're doing it to so many other countries. Because left to Donald Trump and his team, the only people that should come to America should be white-skinned. It happened with South Africa, where they said, oh, some people were flown into America. Are you with me? And they said, oh, because of the fact that they are being, you remember that story,
yeah.
George? Exactly.
Yeah.
And everybody was asking, these are some of them big-time white farmer families, and who was trying to terrorize them or kill them? So left to Donald Trump. Yeah, so what's happening in Nigeria? I'm not sure it's only Nigeria. I'm sure if you go to other African countries and all. But my challenge is this. You revoke people's visas for those who have businesses, those who are paying school fees, who generate revenue for you by their children going to school, or people going to programs in America for American organizations and all. And you just revoke their, nothing, according to the section that has been used, which tells you nothing, but is at their discretion. Oh, over security.
What sort of security concerns?
Yeah, so that's what you should be specific about. But of course, it's an internal policy that they want to reduce the number of people who are in my own opinion, non-white Europeans or non-white Africans like you have in South Africa, who come to America. But the truth of it is this: economic migration cannot stop. Why? Because we've seen it happen in Europe. We see it happening in Asia. We see it happening in Australia. They are asking for people because they have so much more older people than you have in Africa that has the young generation. And this younger generation have become economic migrants because they are developing themselves in different forms of skills and all. So, yeah, it would happen. Thank God I don't even have a US visa now. So I'm not even bothered to go anywhere.
I want us to look at a very critical headline here. Very critical, and I would say so because it goes to show that Nigerians have actually, in a way, I don't want to use the word cheated, but I would say in a way, we've been neglected, and it's gone on for so long. I don't want to drop my analysis, but I want you to do that. Page 19 of the Punch says, MTN, 15 others remit 54 billion in education and police taxes. Now, as you all know, whenever you have blue chip companies, even companies as well, there is a police tax that is embedded in your tax remittances, as well as that of education. How appalling is it that in as much as these taxes are remitted, we still have a very low and degraded system of policing and also education? I don't know, 54 billion.
Okay, so I haven't read the story in details, but 54 billion is a lot of money. And I can see you shaking your head, and I understand why. But
and this is just for the update.
Yeah, but let me also say this about taxes and about government funding. One of the things we've seen, or I have seen over time, is that any new policy or any new bill that has been passed by government that sets up an agency or sets up some form of activities that need to be done, what happens is that they need to find the funding for those who are going to manage it and what they are going to do. And the simplest way to do that is just go and read them. Bills. Oh, 1% charge. From where? 1%, the 2% education tax. We have not seen the impact. Yes, let me finish. Do you understand? However, and I am hopeful that from January 2026, a number of these things are going to end, because we have streamlined our tax system, and the bill has been passed, and it takes effect from January 1, 2026, where you have the new tax bill or the Tax Act. And in my opinion, this is the first time, and I say this, that all forms of taxes and tax management in Nigeria has been put in one book, one booklet, one document that you can read, and how it interacts with each other. Yes, there are still some things there, like the 4% that will come from for special provisions towards government, towards funding some of these things that you see. But you don't just pass it. How does government fund its activities? Is either they borrow or they generate revenue internally, and most of it comes from taxes. So when you see that the level of education is still going to be appalling, why? Because we don't see that money translate into the infrastructure projects that you expect them to be. And to be honest, this education tax has been on for almost 20 years.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So that's where I was going to. It's been long, but the impact is not felt.
The impact will be, you can only feel the impact when the body that manages it actually can align. It's actually for educational infrastructure development. If you go to some federal and state universities, you will see some new buildings that were built some long time ago. Some of them are new projects that are coming up. But of course, we need to do a tour of that. So maybe, Joe, let me give you that assignment at New Central. Do a tour of Nigerian universities and see the impact of education tax over time.
I can answer you here and clearly.
Okay.
The tour has already been done by the students themselves, and it's not looking good. There was a recent, not recent though, I think 2 years ago, where a youth corper decided to even refurbish a school himself and did everything to the commendation of not the government alone, but of course to the students who thanked him. The teachers also came out to have said that, oh, this has been recommended for a long while and it was not attended to. Now that's that. And I'm asking questions. And the questions we're really asking, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's asking these questions. Every single person is asking, if you have this huge sum of money in the government, in government's coffer, good enough, the president has come out to say, listen, we're no longer going to borrow. We've been clapping for that statement. So we dare not see the federal government say they just got loans from another country or another, maybe IMF or whoever, because the government has said no more, the president has said no more borrowings. But we're saying that the ones that we generate internally, what are they being used for?
So
that's it.
So and just to highlight that, the other thing I would say about that is, we say 54 billion. How many years taxes is that? Is it 1 year? Is that what the report says?
Well,
so like I always say, let's not pummel government just for the sake of pummeling them. Why we see these large figures on the headline? So those are the questions I need to ask. I wish I had read the story in detail. But the fact remains is MTN orders 54 billion. Is it just for this year? Over the last how many years that the education tax has been in place? How much has actually been remitted by organizations? So that's where we must start from, if you must do an audit. And when you now know how much has been remitted year in, year out from the day the education tax was brought into place, and also I think is the IT tax, which is I think another 1% for some organizations also. And then we now start to see, okay, we got 1 naira yesterday, what was it used for? And these audits need to be done properly. But in a system where audit reports come out 4 years later, then that's where there's another challenge. So I'll leave it at that.
It's okay.
Okay,
Olive.
Let's go to another paper, but before we do, to mention that if you'd like to call, the numbers to call are on your TV screen. Please call to be a part of the show. Our next paper this morning is the Vanguard newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard, insecurity, I have to create state police, Tinubu says. Declare state of emergency in North to save us, according to Northern Elders Forum. Declaration excites Afenifere, ACF, MBF, others. Nothing has changed in Yelwata since Tinubu's Benue visit, says Steve Leader. Nations must link security with good governance to check terrorism, says Defense Minister. Wants operationalization of ECOWAS standby force to be pursued with renewed vigor. 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying match. Fans to pay 3,000 naira and 1,000 naira to see Eagles.
It don't read.
You don't really read.
No more free.
Anyway, NLC to federal government emulate states that pay above 70,000 naira minimum wage. Sirika blames Air Peace United as man for failure of Nigeria. How? U.S. side security concerns for visa revocation. Alleged terrorism. DSS stalks 9 over killings in Benue Plateau. Federal government not using anti-corruption agencies to witch hunt, opposition minister says. Ida Malud, federal government declares public holiday tomorrow. Congratulations to those who will be working, who will be at home tomorrow. For us, it didn't really concern us.
Yeah, essential workers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Don't concern us.
workers.
So
you know, you're doing a great job.
we don't accept our fate. That's Bakamo.
I appreciate you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you
Well
so
done.
much. Price hike, no subsidy on CNG, says federal government. So let's talk about state police. But again, before you react to that, just to mention to our audience that if you'd like to chip in your thoughts, you want to react to something we've said, you want to contribute to any of the stories on the front pages of the newspapers, or you want to disagree with something that we've said, it's okay. The numbers to call are on your TV screen. Please call in and let us know what your thoughts are on any of the stories, as your point of view matters as well. Uade, are you excited about President Tinubu endorsing state police?
Am I?
You look happy.
Well, I am for state policing, but, and there are so many buts, what are the modalities? It's not just to get the National Assembly to ratify a change in the Constitution on what is not on, what they call, is it the concurrent, and so I think the state police is on the higher part. However, the question is this. First and foremost, in Nigeria, we don't really know what the number of policemen are. We hear it's between 300,000 and 600,000. Is that enough for 200 million Nigerians? That's the first question. So because of that, then you say, okay, maybe it'll be good for the states to have their own policing system. That's one. Two, when you create the state policing system, how do you manage the national policing system when it comes to interstate crimes? Is it the national police that will manage that? How do you interact with the different states for criminals that are on the run? You know, we watch all these movies and say, oh, it's become a national crime, so it's the FBI, no longer the state
NYC.
police.
So those are the intricacies there. But do you have the architectural network for that? Do you have the people for that? We all have about 600,000 police people in the force that cannot even cater for Nigeria as it is. So first and foremost, are you going to increase the members of the national police, number of the national police in force? Now, when you create the state police, how do you bring in the infrastructure that is required for them? Is the state going to pay for that? And if they are going to pay for that, are they going to take over current assets that belong to the national police?
All right, let's hold it there. We have Alhaji Mohammed calling from Port Harcourt. Let's hear from him. Good morning, Alhaji. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Alhaji Hassan Mohammed Ndabagi. I'm calling from Port Harcourt.
All right, please go ahead.
I think one priority, too many decisions from the federal government. We had a situation whereby the federal government gave an autonomy to the local government. 6 to 7 to 8 months down the line, nothing has been implemented. Now you're talking about giving subnational police. Now they are going to create another monster in the name of state police because there will be conflict of decision, conflict of interest. This is the country where we saw a situation where people that does not have state police oppress an elected government in a state, using the influence and manipulation of judiciary because they have power at the center. And today, you have the national police and you also have a state police, and you go for an operation. Who takes the lead? Who takes the decision? Who decides what or not? Now, we've been having conflict between Plateau. The question we need to ask ourselves and our government of the day, we have people that are very hardworking and industrious at various IDP camps. from 2008, 2009, they have not been respectful to their homes. And the government has seen it as nothing. Have you been bothered to ask yourself that some of the hardworking men and women that are kept there, what are some of the youths hanging in those IDP camps doing with their bikes? You see somebody, an IDP with bikes of 1 million, 2 million, and at the night they go out and to do whatever they want to do. And at the end, it will be attacked by Mr. AOP. So I think if the government wants to be sincere to the generality of Nigeria, we don't need state police. What we need to is a political will by enforcing and empowering the existing security architecture. You cannot have where people are being paid 90,000, and when they die, you give them 3 million after 35 years of service, and you want those people to go and commit suicide in the name of enforcement of the law. So I think we need to be proactive, we need to be very focused, and we need to be serious in management of security. If not, we end up creating another problem in addition with the bandits and the harassment that we have. So I think that is not what we want as a people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I totally agree with him. Because there are so many intricacies in creating the state police. Rather, in my own opinion also, it's something that you should look back and say, who is the chief executive officer of the state? How do you have that correlation between the chief executive officer and the national police system? So that, like you say, oh, when it comes to issues that doesn't concern, the architecture is with the federal government. When it comes to their personal dealings, the architecture is with the chief executive officer of the state. So those are questions, and like the caller said, our priorities are continually changing like a pendulum. Let's focus on a few things and get them sorted.
Let's look at this story, which I would term to be a shocking headline, and I wonder why it's right there on the front pages. Many were expecting to see something different. Sirika blames Air Peace United as man for failure of Nigeria Air. This is one headline that would sound very incoherent, unpalatable, or you can name it whichever way you want to define it to a cross-section of Nigerians who have followed deeply, looking forward to see a national carrier, but it never came through.
What happened to so the first question is, what happened to the original?
Yeah, Vanguard.
It's Vanguard.
Yes.
National carrier, Nigeria Airways. Where
he's blaming.
Yeah, so in my own opinion, what I think he's trying to say is that, these private sector airlines refuse to let the national airline become a priority. But we saw under this Sirika how many postponements came for the national airline to then finally painted one aircraft and put it as Nigerian Air. So, we're always looking for excuses for failures. So while we're in school, if you fail, you say, it's because my teacher didn't like me. Then when you go to secondary school and you had different subjects and different teachers.
So would you say that maybe it's a valid argument that no domestic carrier had the capacity to compete with the mega carriers? Because that's what Hadi Sirika says. Before you respond to that, let's take a call from Kola, who's calling from Anambra. Good morning, Kola. Please go ahead.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, I want to talk on this 54 billion that was for school education. But what I want to point out is that up till now, many children are still out of school, and because their parents cannot afford school fees, because the teachers still collect school fees from them, and when they can't pay, they send them away. Is there any way you can check students being sent out of elementary schools to go and bring school fees? Because this 54 billion is a big money and can cater for these children in the classes. That's what I want to.
All right.
Thank you. I think she's talking about the one we talked about, the tax.
Yeah.
And just to mention, just to clarify as well, that money the Nigerian exchange remitted a combined 54.97 billion naira in education tax and 81.33 million naira in Nigerian Police Trust Fund levy to the federal government in the first half of 2025, just from January
So that's why
to June.
That's why I said let's.
Can you see the huge sum?
And I agree with you. That's why I said from the onset, yeah, that's how government tries to fund some of these things, because you have these levies, you have the taxes, education.
Are they really funding it?
The money, if it goes to them, then they are trying to fund it. Whether they actually use the money to do those things is a different thing entirely. And that's why I said we need to do an audit. But in a country where audits, I give an example. Last week we were talking about power sector audit of 2021 issues of discos owing money to the government. That's what the National Assembly or the House of Rep were asking discos to come and talk about. 2021, when tariffs have gone up, God knows how many times after that.
Anyway.
Okay, I want us to go back to the
go back to
conversation.
Sirika.
So, Hadi Sirika, there were a number of things he had explained. He said that no local airline had the capacity to carry like the mega carriers. Then he blamed a couple of airlines as well, stating that, let me just double check the airlines that, yes, Air Peace, United and Asman, he said they went to court and that they said that we cannot establish an airline where we take 5%. He says that this was what stalled it, that if there was no court case and the government that came in had pursued the court case, by today they will have an airline. He also talked about the allegation of 100 billion and said it was no such thing. That the budget was supposed to be for 5 billion naira, and he ended up taking just a little over 2 billion. He said yes. He said between 2015 and 2023, the total budget for the national carrier was 5 billion. The total amount released was 3 billion. I left there with over 1 billion. Nearly a third of the 2 billion that was spent went into the consultancy that was used during the time, and balance of the money, of course, into staff that were hired. By the way, we went through every single step of the ICRC process, and we got it to the end. Hadi Sirika says he plans to write a book as well. So
To do what?
So
He plans to do what? To write a book.
No local airline had the capacity to become the national carrier. You initially wanted both private sector people to also invest in this national carrier. So initially, government was going to own the larger percentage, and I think that's where the kickback came from. And then it continued to reduce until it became 5%, so that you could get people to invest in it. Now, the question now becomes, and everything that we've seen, where government, whether it's 1% or 2% they wield so much power as regulators and co-owners. Do you want me to put my money into these things? Now, if you spend only 2 billion on consulting, that's to put the paperwork and all the things together and get your certification, which is required, don't get me wrong. How much were you planning to put down to actually buy the aircrafts that are going to run this Nigerian Air? Because if you were expecting private sector to put its money down and you spent 2 billion or 3 billion in terms of consulting and staffing just to get the paperwork done, then how much was it going to cost? How much did the so-called stakeholders who were going to put their monies down as shares for this investment were willing to put down? Did they put down those monies? If they did, what happened to them? Did they buy aircraft? And now that would be an excuse for me if they say, okay, people who were allocated shares did not put down the amounts that were required to buy those shares. Because it's not just to allocate the shares, it's also to pay up for those shares. You
know, one thing we need to also mention here as a people, regardless of whether one holds an office as a political, person, or you could say as a politician, or whether you have been appointed as a minister, one thing we should do as well, which we want to highlight in the case of this situation, is we need to learn the art of speaking up. I'm going to give it to Bright Edafe, who is the police PRO. I like what he does. He takes time to educate you, to put out videos there. Many have called him, oh, you talk too much, the police is not good. No, he's contributing his quota to the betterment of the police system. Now, this comes, let's trickle it down to, I mean, the FCT minister always holds media parley here and there. I mean, I don't know about that. But then again, if Hadi Sirika is coming out now, I think the timing is off, if you ask me. Because one, guess what? His principal is no longer alive. President Muhammadu Buhari is no longer alive. And we do understand that there are ties between him and the late former president in terms of relationships. So if he's going to write a book and then he puts that book out there, who can confirm about 100% of everything is going to stay in that book as true, when, of course, I can guarantee, and I'm going to say it here on TV, I stand to be corrected, by the way, that he's going to mention the former late president's antecedents and, of course, his personality in this entire saga, where he's not here to come out. But that's one side. But then again, coming out here to state this, for me, I think it doesn't hold water. But you know why I say so? There was a charade.
Yeah, and we
Let's
saw the
call it
charade.
what it is.
And we saw the charade.
You borrowed a flight. You painted the flight. You brought it in. You quickly told people, set up, let's do small party.
Yep.
They put on the water.
In response to that, I mean, he's saying that a number of the airlines that are flying in Nigeria are not African airlines. British Airways, Qatar Airways, a number of them, and that when there was a transparent bid, Ethiopia Air won the bid.
And I have no problem
So where
with
is it? Where is
Ethiopia
Ethiopia
Air
Air now?
winning the
Well,
bid.
he has said that if we have an issue with it, that if the Minister of Aviation...
Okay, so let me
use the Freedom of Information Act to request
Oh, please, you should spare us. Olive, let me just say something. I think it was last month or a couple of months ago. Enugu State launched their own airline. And we saw them, even if they went to lease the plane, we saw those two planes on the tarmac. We even saw a taxi.
Thank you.
We've seen that. We heard those who were involved come out. And they've been, I know the beauty about it, in as much as the Enugu State government is one of the governments that continues to tell the people what they are trying to do and what they are doing. And at each point, they are trying to give information. And that's what you're talking about. You don't wait almost 3 years after you leave office and say, peace, asthma.
This is what happened.
This is what happened. If Air Peace and asthma had collapsed now, then you say, oh, they are the reason why. We agreed that Nigerians were going to invest in this thing. Which Nigerians agreed? Did they put down the monies for the shares? Or it was just another charade of saying, oh, I'm a partner, I'm a this,
Face
I'm a
caps
that.
were launched, T-shirts were launched, logos were launched, monies
That's the
were put
consulting
in.
that he's talking about, that we spent 2 billion on.
I want to ask a question. If Air Nigeria were to be a company, what will happen to the directors or the managers after they've said, oh, we are launching our company, we've done everything branded, and then they go somewhere and then hire
that they will lease?
and then hire staff and say, just come and act like our
They
staff.
didn't lease 1 or 2 planes that they are going to. You have the lease agreements for those planes.
Anyway,
You know,
it's
sometimes
time for us to wind out of the studio. We have a few
Just
more minutes, but
4
let me see if there's
minutes.
any headline I can quickly run
let's look at
through.
Guardian very quickly.
The
Just
Guardian,
one last
exactly.
story.
Guardian,
one
big
last
story, insecurity, federal government reopens debate on state police. ADC faults Tinubu's charity plan for National Library. Zulum leads Northeast governors to Tinubu 6 completion of 17 roads oil exploration. Poly lecturers may withdraw services after ultimatum. Contractors storm Abuja demand 4 trillion naira payment for completed projects. I don't know if we saw that one. They were protesting on the streets. Very appalling thing. We see here, airline operators defend discriminatory, expensive Yuletide flight tickets. It say everybody go day their house this Christmas. Digital lenders face 100 million naira fine for consumer abuse, data privacy violations. Not all growth accounts for 20 trillion income, says presidency. Constitution review. Abbas unveils proposed amendments to southern stakeholders, and DSS arraigns 9 suspects over Benue Plateau killings. And just to take a few comments online, we have Mokonye Chukwuemeka, who has been, yes, on here. We see here, he says, 2 billion naira for consultancy and staff hired. Lord have mercy. And the Enugu Air is operating now, Mokonye Chukwuemeka says. He says, ask Serika, where is the money he was given for the projects? Yes. All right, and then we also have here, Tinubu thinks of something and says it, whether it makes sense or not. I think this is in response to
the appointment of
appointments in NTA,
DG, and then
exactly. Anyway,
turn around.
That's all that we can take this morning.
A man can change his mind.
Yeah, but would you say change your mind after you've signed off and penned off? Does it mean that due diligence was done?
Well, maybe due diligence was done and some other things came up after. And then it's okay, take it back and go do additional due diligence. And then now that he has been cleared,
The announcement should not have been made in the first place.
Let's be careful. New things come up even after you have cleared people.
So you think that their hands were dirty?
I didn't say that.
But when it's consistent with a particular, you know,
this is the same thing we are criticizing the U.S. government
this
for.
Is the same
thing that we're saying
you do,
and then visas are being revoked because new information has sufficed.
I don't work in the U.S. government, so I don't know anything. The only thing I know is that visas are being revoked for security reasons.
Thank you.
Okay, and new information has come out. Anyway,
exactly.
Thank you too.
Which is based on security. Thank you for having me as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you, Uade Ahimie, for being here. Always a pleasure having you, and thank you too for watching.